You know, what's amazing is when I first had my scale or my first wave of financial success, and it was really the model of how to increase your marketing strategy to bring more clients to the front door. And it was very well. What I didn't have, and I was always told to do it, was a legal arm to what you do. As you build your business and as you continue to innovate and elevate, you know, we do live in a litigious society and there are mistakes that are made. In all honesty, it happens. And if you don't have a legal arm, what may cost you by not having it is going to cost you so much more in the future. And that was one of the beautiful challenges that happened to me back at 11, 12, 13, all the way launching into 15, which then led to my rebirth in 2017 and 18. So today I have with me wonderful human being who happens to be our attorney here at Epic Insurance Services, Kevin Galbraith. What's up, Kevin? How you doing, brother?
I'm great. Good to see you, Rob.
It's so awesome. I've known you now for over 3.5, 4 years, I think, when I first met you.
Sounds right.
And Kevin is the person that, and I'm telling you folks, when I'm driving around or I go to bed at night, I feel really safe that there's a team and a person around me in the business that we have, because I think that, you know, you've seen businesses go out of business, even if they were thriving, just because they didn't have the right kind of counsel. Right, I'm sure it comes up from time to time.
It does. It does. Having the right team in place and making sure that you have the right framework, the right legal framework in place as you're launching.
Yeah.
That's what allows you to focus on what you should be focusing on, which is your business.
Yeah.
Let other people make sure the legal piece is in place, empowers you to do your business.
And Kevin, let me ask you a question, because I was probably this person. Is there a lot of people that don't do it just because they're thinking about cost or they think they know better? Like, is that kind of the typical thing that happens early on in the game?
It is. And first, frankly, it's understandable, right?
Yeah.
When you're starting a business, the last thing you want to do is pay, legal fees left and right.
Yep.
So I consider that penny wise, pound foolish, because yes, you can go online and find a form of an agreement. Yes, you can Google something and think that you know the right answer to a legal question.
Yeah.
Can you actually get expert legal advice that is tailored to you by doing a Google search? You can't.
Yeah. And how long have you been in practice?
I've been practicing about 20 years,
Yep.
and I launched my own firm about 10 years ago.
Amazing. So what's amazing is Kevin just talked about Googling something that gives you an answer to something else. And, I've seen things pop up in our world right now that when I look at agreements that we have, right, and I look at how whenever we engage in new relationships, the importance of what those agreements look like and how powerful they are when you least expect it, by the way. And you always have to have the mindset, not paranoia, which is self-destroyer, but you have to have the mindset of at any point, if you're not I dot and T cross it, even by accident, something can pop up. So always be prepared for that. But long before we get into the last 20 years, where are you from and where did it all start?
Sure. So I was born in Vermont.
Really? Where?
I'm a New Englander, born in Burlington, Vermont.
Wow. I can't wait to talk about Vermont with you. Go ahead.
Lived there about 7 years, moved around a little bit as a kid. So lived outside Buffalo for 4 years after that.
Yep.
And then moved to just outside Hartford, Connecticut.
So the cold weather doesn't scare you?
Doesn't scare me at all.
As a matter of fact, you thrive in the cold weather, I bet.
I thrive in the cold weather to an extent.
Okay.
Now, I followed my wife to Minnesota, lived there for 5 years. That's a little much.
Is it more than Vermont?
Oh, it's way worse.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
We had weeks where it didn't even get up to 0.
Oof.
That's no good.
That's not fun.
No.
But you can legally represent somebody in the cold weather, I bet. Versus someone in Florida that might not be able to have that skill set if it was outside.
I love it. And you could probably tell from my savage tan that I was just in Florida, however.
Were you really?
I was. I was in Miami for a day
you
and a
don't
half.
look like it.
No.
Oh, only a day and a half, though. That's different.
I'm a sunscreen fanatic.
Yes. And I'm sure there's good reason to it.
Yes.
So grew up in Vermont, Buffalo, early years. What did your parents do?
My mom she's a retired nurse.
Okay. Sorry.
And my dad was a public health official. He was the state epidemiologist for Vermont, helping people with toxic hazards, infant mortality, drug addiction, AIDS, and so on.
How was he helping with drug addiction? Just because I'm sober since 1996, so that stood out.
So he was all about harm reduction. He was, a senior public health official in Hartford, Connecticut, and then in Vermont, where they have serious crystal meth and heroin problems, both places, as well as crack back in the 80s and 90s. And for him, it is about keeping people safe and alive while they deal, hopefully, with those those underlying addiction issues. So it was quite controversial, actually. He wanted needle exchange programs so people weren't getting and spreading AIDS while they were in the throes of addiction.
Amazing.
Very inspiring career, all about public service.
Any siblings?
Yeah, I'm the youngest of three.
You are the youngest.
I
Okay.
do. Yep.
All right. And are the older siblings in the same game you're in, or are they?
Very different. I'm actually the first lawyer in my family, and I believe the only business person in my direct family. So my sister is a dean of faculty at St. Michael's College up in Burlington, Vermont.
I know St.
And my
Michael's.
brother has been a public school teacher in Philadelphia for 25 plus years.
Oh, that's amazing. And where do your parents live now?
They live back in Vermont now. They moved to Shelburne, Vermont about 10, 12 years ago.
Interesting. Do you get back there a lot just to see your parents, or do you have your own property there, or?
No property there. Still love it. I'm a Vermonter, Green Mountain boy at my heart, so I get back whenever I can, but mostly to see my parents.
You know, it's interesting. When I went to college in Vermont, and as you folks know, that I am sober one day at a time, but during that time I wasn't. And I discovered the meaning of life one night at Hell Night, which was my fraternity, pledging new fraternity people in. And needless to say that I was in a different stratosphere mentally. And for 1 second, I figured out what the game of life was, but I don't remember what it was. That's one of my Vermont stories.
That's the
Don't
problem.
remember. I was there for 4 years, and it was the funnest time in my life, but I don't have a lot of memories from it.
Yeah.
So, which meant that, I had to make some changes, which I did, and we talk about it often. And I think life is, adversity is life's gymnasium. I always talk about that. One of my mentors shared that with me, and it really comes down to being able to overcome certain obstacles that if we look at them as gifts versus, something that's stopping us from growing, I think that's the difference. It's the small stuff, the difference between, I'll use the word success and non-success. I won't even say failure, optimal or suboptimal.
Yeah,
So
no, you and I have that in common, right? It's the one of the phrases that I love is the blessing of a skinned knee, right? We're parents, right? You've got kids, I've got kids.
never heard that one.
Overcoming adversity, right? Getting back up. It's not how many times you get knocked down.
That's
it's
right.
how many times you get back up.
Amazing.
That's the kind of thing. And yes, our instinct is to protect our kids, protect our employees, protect all the people around us at all costs.
Yep.
But sometimes that adversity is, as you said, a gift.
Yeah.
Right? It teaches you that I can overcome this.
And
I
the
can
goal,
do this.
the goal to that point is adversity is, I'm late, how do I get there early, versus like something that hits you in the face. The faster you could understand that it's a gift and not stay stuck in that belief that, oh, woe's me. Because your brain, if you say, why did this happen to me, is going to show you why it happens over your life history. So you want to be able to make sure that you overcome that as fast as possible.
Love
and yeah, it's pretty cool. So you went to, you were in grammar school basically in Vermont, Buffalo area. Where'd you go to high school and into college?
Simsbury High School, just about 20 minutes north of Hartford, and
Connecticut.
then on to Connecticut College.
UConn. Are you a UConn fan?
I love UConn, but it is a different school.
Yeah.
So when it comes to basketball, I'm happy to be UConn.
Yeah.
Grew up rooting for the women. The men are making an incredible run this March Madness.
The coach is my relative through marriage.
I learned that from listening to one of your other episodes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing. So proud of what he's doing. It's
Well,
incredible.
he's brought the program back to where it ought to be.
Yeah.
He's
And the girls program, as you know, although they lost
dominant,
recently, is insane.
dominant
seen anything like it in my
for
life.
decades. No, incredible.
Wow. So college, high school, did you play sports?
I did. I played tennis and I did cross country skiing. Those were my varsity sports, but basketball has always been my first love, and I still
Dude,
play.
I never knew that.
Yeah,
Did you tell me that before?
I've
You
never
did level
told you
one
that.
listening.
No, I've never told you that.
You really love basketball.
And at age almost 53, I probably shouldn't play anymore, but I still love it.
Do you know I stopped playing at 30 because I couldn't play like a normal person?
Okay.
Like I could
Like
as a grown man, I couldn't without the competitive
You
side.
get too
It was
mad.
too much.
Yep.
And then I thought I was gonna have like a massive injury.
Well,
very based on
very few people's basketball careers end at my age without a catastrophic injury.
53. That is impressive.
I play the old man's game now.
That's okay.
I can rebound.
Go foul line to foul line?
I go foul line to foul line. I've got a nice jump shot.
Yep.
And I find my teammates.
Now, did you play in high school or you just loved the game?
Just play pickup.
Got it.
Just love the game.
The whole time, like college, when you're studying for...
Never quit.
Yeah. So where do you go to school? Where do you go to college?
Went to Connecticut College, studied government, just like poli-sci, but government and history, and then worked for. Sorry, you had a question?
No. Was a lawyer development at that point?
No.
Or was he always there?
That's the funny thing. My parents will tell you, because I like to argue, that the lawyer's always been in there.
Got it.
It took me a little bit longer to figure that out. So I worked for about 7 years after college before I even went to law school.
Okay.
So I worked in publishing. I love writing. I love the written word. But I also love being part of a team. So writing, editing, publishing, pretty solitary work. So looked at my bookshelves, said, man, everything I'm reading is about civil rights history, legal history, the founding of the United States.
Wow.
Maybe law school is calling out to me. So I went to law school, came to New York City, went to Fordham University, became a RAM, and I'm one of those happy lawyers. I love what I do.
So to learn about how America was formed and learn about the civil rights movement, and I know, we have a window here, but can you talk a little bit about that stuff that, maybe some people like me just don't understand, that we
Sure.
don't see, that we're just controlled daily by the narrative of the news?
So what spoke to me is this country was founded on some really inspirational and important ideals, right? Treating people equally, equal justice under the law, a fair shot, the opportunity to come to the United States and make the best of your life, deliver that best life to your family. All those things spoke to me. Now, has our country always been consistent with those founding ideals? No. Right? We're a work in progress. That's why we needed the Emancipation Proclamation. That's why we needed the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act in the 60s. It's why we continue to need help to get ourselves toward those founding ideals, to where everybody is truly equal under the law, everybody has equal access to justice. Those things spoke to me and said, you can be part of that, and you can help people who want equal justice and want access to the court system, want to be protected from the law, right? Sometimes the government overreaches and people need help from, say, super aggressive regulators coming after them, or even law enforcement's coming after them. All those people need help too, and they deserve it. So all of those things about the founding ideals, as well as, equal rights, civil rights, that all spoke to me for a bunch of reasons we could talk about over coffee sometime.
And when you talk about civil rights, you're talking about, women vote in the 60s, that kind of stuff. Like
yeah. So
I'm a big fan of what happened in the. I honestly, I'll be real. I love Malcolm X's work when I learned that whole story.
Yep.
Right. MLK, obviously, a lot of people talk about his speech, which is one of the greatest speeches of all time. Right. JFK was trying to do what he would like. The game within the game during that 10-year period was insane.
So growing up in suburban Hartford, there weren't a lot of families who had the autobiography of Malcolm X, Eldridge Cleaver's Soul on Ice, had those on their bookshelves. Those were on our bookshelves because that's stuff that my family was always committed to. My grandfather was a religious leader, and he led his congregation to the March on Washington to hear Dr. King speak in 1963. That always made an impression on me. He's a hero within our family, and those ideals flowed all the way down. Yeah. I have not lived my life in a way that is solely devoted to civil rights and human rights like he did, but it's still important to me, and it's still work that I try to be helpful with.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So that was part of, obviously your fabric, right? And now 7 years. What were you doing for 7 years after college?
I was working in publishing, so I worked
Lonely? Was it?
Yeah,
I read a lot,
Yeah, read a ton, wrote a ton, edited. I sat there with my blue pencil and I copy edited manuscripts. I wrote, I published stuff, and there are parts of it that I loved. But I said, is this the best fit for my personality. I'm pretty gregarious. I love to be around people. I love to help people solve problems. The written word is a beautiful thing, and I still take great pride in my writing, but realized that it wasn't a career fit for me.
I'm sure you're proud of everything, but is there any pieces that you published that you're really proud of, or is there anything you published that better than you thought it would, or
Sure,
anything like that?
sure. The
And
first,
can they find it?
oh gosh,
How does that work? If we're talking to someone that's like you, right? Or
how,
like,
how does the internet work, Rob? Can you find a piece that I published 28 years ago?
I just learned about the internet yesterday.
I think you probably can. The legal work that I've published that I really enjoyed was something I did in law school. It's about the constitutional history of the copyright clause. That I know you can find. The work that I did on sports and music was probably closer to my heart. Right, I wrote about a high school basketball sensation who went on to play at Stanford. I wrote about a band that I loved in
Do you
Minneapolis.
still do stuff like this?
Like
If you want to write about Epic Elite's AAU program, which is brand new and it's catching massive momentum.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And my son played AAU hoops, so yeah, I'm a big fan. You and I both have lots of interests outside of our businesses.
Yeah.
I'm a huge music person and a huge sports person.
Amazing. Who's your favorite sports team? College basketball, UConn.
Oh, it's a
Celtics.
It's a tale of woe, Rob.
Yeah.
So yes, UConn is the only team that I really root for that wins a lot.
Yep.
My other favorite teams are the Minnesota Vikings, which are 0 for 4 in Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And the Buffalo Bills, also
boy.
0 for 4 in Super Bowls.
Sorry.
Now, until I was 34, I was also basking in the futility of being a Boston Red Sox fan. Now they win every few years, so it's a bit
You
different.
put your time in.
Yes, I put my time
That's
in.
pretty amazing. Do you go to a lot of baseball games?
I go to Mets games. Sometimes I go to Yanks games. My son's up at school in Boston, so I get to Fenway whenever I can up there.
I've never been to Fenway.
Oh my gosh.
I heard it's unbelievable.
Let's go together.
Yeah,
it's
I
a
will.
great place.
I'm a Celtics fan growing up, Bird.
Okay.
Steelers fan growing up because my brother was a Raiders fan.
Yep.
I'm a 70s kid.
Yep. Steelers, they won like 4 and 5 years, right?
But I was little. And I
tiny,
suffered
yeah.
literally from age 10 to 2005 to 30. I suffered for 25 years.
Yeah, you put some time in.
I did. I had to put a lot of time in. And then I had the good fortune of going to the games, though. So I went to the Super Bowl in 05. That was amazing, by
Yep.
the way. Seeing them win, I couldn't even handle the game. It was so, like, crazy.
Yep.
Because, like, you're putting all that vested time as a fan in. To get there and lose would be, like, terrible. You know the feeling.
I basically don't sit when I watch high
not
stakes sporting
fun.
events. I stand and I pace.
It's not fun. There's nothing fun about it. And then you get a minute of glory, right?
That's about it.
Then the next thing you know, you're in the first week of the next season and they're getting punched in the face.
Yeah, that's about it.
Wow, I didn't know that, Kev. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I should do a better job at asking questions.
Well, but the team aspect of it, both whether we're talking about sports or music, the team aspect, listening, right, looking for your teammates, how can you make each other better?
Yep.
That's part of it that resonates with me too. And a lot of people talk about sports build character, sports do this for kids and that. It's a fact.
Yeah, it does.
Right? Talk about adversity, talk about dealing with losing.
Yeah.
Talking about trying to find people and lift them up.
Yep.
It's all great.
Especially
it's
if you
all
don't
great
feel
for
good.
life.
You want to lift people up, right?
Yeah.
And it's okay for people to help you too. But, So listen, here's the thing. So 7 years of doing what you were doing, I feel, I want to hear what you're going to say, that you were pretty certain on what you wanted to do next.
Yes.
Once you got to law school. So you knew what?
So I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I went into law school with a pretty open mind, right? I thought about civil rights, so I did a civil rights clinic. I helped people get asylum, fleeing, abusive regimes in West Africa. I helped people deal with housing discrimination in Queens. Loved that part of it. And then once I graduated and I got out into my first law firm, I was exposed to a whole different set of legal issues, fact patterns, types of clients, worked with some really talented people, learned a ton. And then 10 years into my career, I said, I think I know enough that I can go out on my own. Wow. I can launch, I can do this. And thankfully I was right.
And so that's 10 and 10, right?
Yeah.
And the last 10, how's that been for you?
Last 10's
Because the world has changed like a lot every minute.
Oh, it's so fast.
Like the speed of change is not like how do you even keep up with it?
I mean, I read all the time.
Yeah.
I read all the time, and you have to stay connected.
Yeah.
So I have a whole network of people that I'm in touch with constantly. I learn from them.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, I
Like
know.
a networking, like a mastermind group of
Yeah,
attorneys. Yeah.
and a couple of them.
Yeah.
Both formal and informal. Right. I know a lot. I have plenty to share, but I also recognize that there's a whole lot of people out there who know a ton more than I do about certain topics, and let's exchange information. Let's make each other smarter.
That's amazing.
So I love it. I always say it was the best business decision I ever made was to go out on my own. The best decision I ever made was, of course, getting married to my wife.
Yes.
But the best business decision I ever made was going out on my own. So now I've been able to build a small firm, and I'm able to build that in my vision, be consistent with my values, treat people like they deserve to be treated and want to be treated, put out of our door only the highest quality legal work, take the clients that I want to work with, turn down clients that I don't want to work with.
That's what I was going to ask you. What is your how many people are part of your team?
So
Like all, internal out. Like what does your world look like?
Sure. So people who are part of the Galbraith law firm, 3, and then I've got project folks who have worked with us in the past who I bring on for specific projects.
Like GCs and like you're a GC and you're bringing on.
Yeah. That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
And then I co-counsel cases. So on probably a quarter to a third of my cases, I bring on other law firms with other areas of expertise.
And that's normal, right? For attorneys, unless they have the major law firm in each division.
Yeah, it is normal, right? It allows me to build bandwidth, and it allows me to leverage on those relationships, and they can help me, I can help them.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you decide if you're going to work with a client or not? Like if you just speak it, not specific, but like how do you pick and choose?
Sure.
And I don't want to go too far, and I want to make sure that I'm honoring what you do. So that's why.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. And you're right. Every client relationship is entirely confidential. So I'll say, as a general matter, just like in a whole lot of other parts of life, fit is key. Right. The personalities have to mesh. I have to. The client has to like and want to work with me, and vice versa. Yeah. So do we build a rapport easily? Are they responsive? When I ask for things, are they able to provide them, reasonably promptly? On the flip side, do I pick up the phone when they call?
Yeah.
Do I give quality, thoughtful legal advice when I'm asked for it?
He does.
Right. All those expectations that every client.
I'm not recommending, but he does.
Every expectation that a smart client has of a lawyer, I want to meet and exceed that.
He does.
So it's about fit. For me, it's also, frankly, it's about bandwidth, right? I've got a small firm. I've got, say 25 or 30 active matters in the firm at any one time. If I go to 40 or 50, I'm not treating every client with the level of expectation or the level of care that they deserve. So I don't do that.
Yeah. And did it take you long to realize that, or you knew that already? Did you actually step into that deep water a little bit and then have to pull back because of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think because I had practiced at bigger firms for 10 years before I went on my own, I saw that lesson, and I learned that object lesson by watching others. Now, yes, when I first started my firm, do I want to say yes to everybody? Do I want to sign up every prospective client who comes in? Of course, that's the instinct, but very quickly you realize, okay, I've got a small team here. There's only 24 hours in the day. Let's make sure that we keep it right.
And your team is in the same mindset, right?
Oh, 100%. And frankly, part of how we hire is a huge part of how we hire is always about fit. Right? That. Is this somebody who is going to pick up the phone? Is this somebody who my clients are going to like working with? Right? Because we spend a lot of time with some of our clients. Are they going to get along? Are they all pulling in the same direction, or are they using sharp elbows because they want to get ahead? There's enough of that in the world. I don't want that at my firm. I don't need that at my firm.
In a world far away, in a different mastermind group, not saying you, but when you talk to other people, what do they say about things that they like or don't like about how clients act with attorneys.
How clients act.
This wouldn't be
with
you,
attorneys.
of course. This is somebody else.
Got it. Yeah, I think a pretty common frustration with attorneys as it relates to their clients is, are you being open with me? Are you being totally transparent?
Yep.
Are you sharing everything that I need to know? Or are you trying to kind of game it and share only enough so that I give you the answer you want to hear? That's not helpful, because we lawyers can't help clients who are not transparent and open with them.
And the
That's
clients have what they call AC privilege, so why wouldn't they tell you everything?
correct. And it's a great
Right?
it's a great question, and there's no good answer to it.
Is it that they're just trying to your point, they want to hear what they want to hear?
They either want to hear what they want to hear, or that maybe there's some part of the story that they're not proud of.
Yeah.
They don't feel comfortable sharing it. One of the first things I say when I talk to any client or even prospective client, everything we say is confidential and privileged, whether you hire me or not.
Yeah.
So please, let's just have an open conversation.
Is some of your work, do you depose people? Is there some of that going on for
Sure.
you? And how is that technique? Like, is that sounds like to me a game of psychology, because now you're playing a game of questions, right? And then you're taking notes and more questions to come back to the first question to say, well, you said this before. Is there any times that where people actually were being honest, but because they didn't articulate it the right way, they can get trapped up in some of their answers?
Sure, that can happen.
If there's a good attorney that may not be, I'm not going to say not doing good, but they're representing their client, tripping somebody up would be part of, I would assume, the game within the game.
It can be, and you're definitely right that there's a lot of psychology to it. I find that lawyers tend to have, or many lawyers tend to have, a very high opinion of themselves, and they think that if only I could be across the table from this person, I'm gonna get them, I'm gonna trip them up, whatever they're gonna do.
Yeah.
What it's really about, Rob, is preparation. Do I know my facts as well as they can be known? Have I read all my documents as carefully as they need to be read?
Yep.
Once you're empowered with that level of information, knowledge, and preparation, then you're ready to ask a series of great questions and get to the truth.
I find this real interesting. This is like, I'm really having a lot of fun here.
Me too.
In all good ways. I think that, when it comes to attorneys or, fiduciaries or even just guys like me, insurance agents or entrepreneurs, one of the things I don't like to do is there's a time when I want to decompress and not talk about work. But there was a time that wasn't the case. I was always on. I think I'm at a different stage right now where I do like to just talk about something silly and specifically not talk about work. But there's a lot of people that are around me that always want to know certain things. And all good, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. How do you turn it off? How do you recharge besides sleep, besides working out? I'm just about the mental, and I know that's part of it. But how do you create like those boundaries on just, hey, I'm Kevin that's playing basketball right now. I don't really want to talk about like a business proposal or buy-sell agreement.
It can be a challenge. And as an entrepreneur that your mind is always on, right? You're always looking for another opportunity. How can I improve my business? But if you're going to last at it, right? I'm almost 53. If I'm going to last at this another...
AARP, bro. You got the emails?
I sure do.
Yep. AARP, everybody.
If I'm going to last at this and continue to love this, I have to be able to turn it off.
Yeah.
So for me, I've got a couple of very simple ways to do it. One is to play a sport.
Yeah.
Right? If a jump shot is being shot in your face and you haven't contested it, you better pay closer attention to the basketball game you're playing.
That's right.
If somebody's across the net and hits a nasty passing shot and you didn't anticipate it, so you didn't get to it, not great.
You got to work on your game.
My other piece is music. I love music. I sing.
What kind of music?
So I play and sing rock and roll and blues.
Really?
And when you're picking up your guitar and you're singing and you're harmonizing with your bandmates and you're listening for the one from your drummer, you're not thinking about business.
You have a band?
I do.
Really? Do you guys play a lot?
We practice a lot, and we are starting to play more and more. Next gig is in July.
You should get a YouTube channel.
Yeah, great idea.
That's how you get it out there faster.
Love it. We have a website, but it doesn't have a YouTube link, so that's next.
You should get a YouTube channel. Just have somebody come in and film everything.
Yep, love that idea.
Can I get credit for that or no?
Of course. So special thanks to Rob Gill for the inspiration.
Yes. So here's my question. I do a thing all the time, and everybody's doing it. It's called, I'll say I'm not confused. right? And I'll use it in a way where, like everyone says, I'm not confused. I get it. But when someone's making a point, I'll say something like, yeah, I'm not confused. I get it.
Got it.
Or the other thing I made up is fake confusion. Like when somebody knows something, just happened in the office over there. When somebody knows something and it's like, oh, you mean like, oh, now I get it, but they always knew it. We call that fake confusion.
Okay.
How do I trademark that? Right, Dan?
You use it. Okay, so there's an actual answer, which is a boring answer.
All right.
But there's a very simple procedure for getting a trademark through the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office.
And would you do that for anyone?
Is
that part of your?
It's a simple enough process. I'm happy to help.
Awesome. So you're building something awesome. I love it. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 or 10 years? Like, what does it look like for you, who clearly has a passion to serve and help people, no doubt about it? What does it look like the next 5 or 10, 15 years?
Yeah, no, the way you phrase the question is so important. So I see myself continuing to love what I do, to continue to build the business and thrive and grow along with my team.
Yep.
When you say to continue to help to serve, I would love to be able to carve out more time to get back into doing more pro bono work. Some of the most satisfying work I've ever done is with some of the asylum seekers that I mentioned earlier.
Amazing.
I helped overturn a wrongful conviction years ago.
Really?
That type of work is so important. It's part of why I got into it. But when you're running a business, sometimes that can fall to the wayside. It's hard to carve out the time to do that. So I would love to get to a position where I could do more of that again.
So you overturned the conviction. What made you want to take the case?
Because a colleague had dug into the facts of the case and persuaded me that it was a wrongful conviction. It was a paralegal at a law firm.
Yeah.
And she read an article. She started digging into it. And she said, Kevin, and named a couple of other colleagues and said, would you be interested in working on this?
Yeah.
All right. My answer is always, I'll take a look.
Yeah.
I took a look. I was persuaded that it, in fact, was a wrongful conviction.
Blatantly persuaded, or was it still a dice roll? Because it takes a lot to flip a.
It was
flip
not.
a
It was
conviction.
not a dice roll. We had forensic scientific evidence that the conviction never should have happened.
Got it. And I'm just asking. I'm not because I don't know what I don't know. Is there like whenever you're in a situation like that, and the folks that made the initial call, is there a level of like blockage and a level of like gamesmanship that you have to overcome? That could, and some folks could be insurmountable, not you, but other folks may kind of bow out of it because of that.
Sure. And, in that case, I'll say there were roadblocks put up. They didn't want to hear it.
Yep.
They didn't want to question the decisions that they had made to prosecute in the first place. And what made it extra difficult was there had already been layers of appeal that had been turned down.
Got it.
So we had to actually start a fresh proceeding and persuade a federal judge that there was newly discovered evidence.
And that's hard, right?
It's really hard.
Yeah,
It's a high bar. There are sadly thousands and thousands of people sitting in jail right now.
That's scary.
Who were never able to persuade a judge that they were wrongfully convicted.
That's horrible.
But with the team that we built and the resources that the firm put into it to support us to do that pro bono work, we were able to get all the way there.
So it sounds like to me, if money didn't exist, that's what you'd be doing all day, every day, twice on Sunday.
That's about right.
Right?
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah, serving. I love it. So, well, thank you for all that. How could folks reach you if they want to have at least a conversation so you could take a look at something to decide if you want to work with them or not?
Sure. So my name is Kevin Galbraith. It's thegalbraithlawfirm.com. Always happy to talk to people. We do free consultations. Give me a call. Numbers on the website. Look forward to speaking with people who might need legal services.
And what kind of services specific you want to share?
Sure. So virtually everything we do is around financial services and insurance.
Okay.
So I help investors, both institutional and individual. I help companies who are trying to navigate choppy waters, who are being investigated by regulators. And I also help people in employment contexts. So say you're trying to leave one firm and go to another, and you would really rather not breach the contracts that you have with that first firm.
Wow.
You come to me and I help you make sure that you walk that line properly, do everything above board. That part of the practice I call risk mitigation. Right? I'm trying to avoid problems. I'm trying to help you have smooth sailing before we get into a litigation.
Yeah. And if you look at, you've seen a lot with the financial services industry. What is the common thing that you see with the consumer out there today? In general terms, of course, nothing specific, that continues to pop up over and over. I have my thoughts on it. I'm interested, and I'll share mine, but I'm interested to see what you think.
Yeah, to me, the most common mistake that investors make is investing in things that they don't truly understand.
Yeah.
And that can be a mortgage-backed security.
Yep.
That can be a credit default swap, right? If we're talking back from the financial
08.
crisis of 08, 09.
Yep.
Today, that can be in derivative instruments. It can be in cryptocurrencies, right? We've seen huge banks go down just in the last couple of weeks. And I believe Warren Buffett said this, if some version of this, if you can't explain your investment to somebody, you probably don't understand it well enough to be invested in it.
Yeah.
So I think that people following the highest yield, following what they think is exploding, chasing a quick payday is often you're bringing on risk that you may not have the stomach for.
Yep.
And that's one of the biggest pitfalls that I see investors fall into now.
So does that go back to behavioral finance for you, psychology? Does that go back to not see? Because I firmly believe no matter who you are, if you could have your accountant, your attorney, your trust, everybody on the same page, like for at least the benefit of they all have to get together based on what you're looking for. I think if that happens, as hard or as boring as that may sound, your decision making is pretty solid.
Yeah.
And you'll live by that, especially when winter comes economically.
Yes.
Right. And probably have opportunities to pick up things at discount.
It's a brilliant philosophy. And I think it's why you and I have always resonated, because when you have people aligned and looking out for the best interests of people who have very specific goals, and not everybody's the same.
Yeah.
When you have people aligned in your corner, you're going to make a whole lot better decisions.
And you as, have seen a lot in not only that space, but I'm sure in the space of business and partnerships and business and disputes and where businesses or companies may break apart because the owners aren't aligned. What are some of the things that owners should be aware of or do as a way, especially if the business is scaling and growing, on how to stay aligned and make sure they're on the same page at all times?
Yeah, great question. And the timing of when you ask that question is absolutely critical.
Yep.
Right? You want to ask it on the front end.
Yep.
And even though it's boring, and even though you probably need to pay a lawyer to get there,
That's right.
when things are exciting, when the ideas are bubbling,
Yep.
when things are on the verge of getting some rocket fuel and taking off, that's the time to get the legal framework in place, right? Not after money is pouring in the door and people are being pulled in 16 different directions. Let's take care of it on the front end, right? So you can continue to focus as business partners on making that business succeed,
Amazing.
not get distracted by the legal framework that's hopefully already in place at that point.
Yeah. And for you, do you ever retire? Is that a thought that you would have? Is it consulting? Is it? We know you'd love to do pro bono work. Sorry about that. Where do you see, like, when it's all said and done, and what you're going to be remembered for?
Ooh.
I mean, I think about the one guy whose case or gal was overturned. All I'm thinking is there's family connected to that person. That family could have a kid, could have a kid, could have a kid that could change the world for the better. Like, that's how I think of when I think of people over money, right? So that's what I look at.
Yeah, and people over money is a great way to put it. I want to be remembered for how I treated people and how I made people feel, right? When somebody came through my door as a client or as a friend, did I make them feel good? Did I support them? Did I lift them up? The other thing that my firm has started to get into in the last couple of years is advocacy whistleblower work. So we're doing work on climate change, working with some amazing partners to try to hold companies accountable for the pledges that they're making around climate change.
Yeah.
So if I can make a small difference or contribute to making a difference to help heal our planet and help it stay healthy so that our kids and grandkids will have good air to breathe and a climate they can live with, love to have that be part of my legacy as well.
That's amazing, by the way, because you talk about, reading a lot, writing a lot. So I would suspect your level of understanding of different vocabulary words is probably more than above average. So I believe, personally, I learned this from Tony Robbins, that each word has energy and transformational vocabulary. So for the folks that are out there, if they're anything like me, they hear the word whistleblower and it almost sounds like you're a rat, right? So I think what I would, I'd like for you to talk to these folks about the importance of a whistleblower, right? And how it could, eliminate all kinds of fear and distortion and corruption and really move the ball forward. If you don't mind sharing that, because the word whistleblower always comes across, at least to me, in a negative context. Maybe not somebody else, but at least the importance for somebody younger watching is what is a whistleblower, and how are they important people?
It's a great question, and the fact that it evokes that kind of feeling in you is something I'm very happy to address, because I'm glad to have the opportunity to do it. A whistleblower is essentially, you could think of a whistleblower as an independent referee.
Sounds like a superhero.
In some ways, they are superheroes.
Yeah.
Whistleblowers have brought justice to some of the most important issues in our company's corporate history.
Yeah.
So whether it's in the tobacco industry,
Yep.
Whether it's in the tech industry, whether it's in politics, whether it's in the meat processing industry, whether it's around child labor, whether it's around lying to the public around climate impact that you're having. It is an independent referee comes and says, listen, I know what the rules are. I know what you have said.
Yep.
I know what the law requires. And I also know that you're not living up to it.
Yep.
I've gone internally. I've tried to do everything that I can to get the company to do the right
So they
thing.
do those steps first.
You got to do those steps
You can't
first.
you got to make sure you exhaust all possibilities.
You got to exhaust all the remedies that you can.
That's good. I didn't know that.
And then you can go to organizations like the SEC, the CFTC, the Department of Justice, and you can say, listen, I've done everything I can. Now I need the power of government to come in and make this company do the right thing, because the stakes are very high.
Yeah.
The whistleblowers are subject to retaliation all the time.
Yep.
That in itself is a legal violation, by the way.
And it's intimidating.
Whistleblowers are courageous people.
Yeah.
They stand up for what they know is right. They have very strong ethics, and they are willing to sometimes sacrifice their careers and even their safety to shine a light on some wrongdoing.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that, brother. And by the way, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask below. Comments, feel free to add below. Don't forget to click and subscribe. We're dropping, every day or every other day. There's either a short form video or there's a new interview. And I think that if you understand the importance of your business, you want to have good marketing, you want to have a good structure, you want to have good, board of directors, you want to make sure that everything is lined up. But to me, one of the most, if not the most important thing is compliance and a legal arm of your business. Because if you don't have either of those, you're going to be running east looking for a sunset. And when you find out that the sun's not set in the east, it's already too late because you're not on the moon. You're in New York. Or wherever on the East Coast. So, Kev, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob.
One last time, if they want to get with you, how do they get with you?
They can go to my website, thegalbraithlawfirm.com, or
And that's
Kevin
G-A-L?
Galbraith Law. Yeah,
Yep.
GalbraithLawFirm. So galbraithlawfirm.com. My phone number's on there. Happy to take an email, phone call, however you like.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kev. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate your time.
You got it, my friend.